nurseries do a great job of taking care of the vines and having them ready for us to put in the ground. They handle them well, the shipping is done well, the seaweed prevents the vines from drying out. They're just handled real well. So we work with a nursery to provide our plants, and the quality gives us an advantage of being able to establish the plant well, which is very important to us, is that we have viable plants that go all the way into maturity. They leave the plant, the upper end, in a very bushy state and allow us to do the pruning that we want to do. It's really important that we see that we have a viable plant, and then we're able to do the pruning. We only want 2 to 3 buds up at the top. Those are the buds that are going to actually bud out and become, one of those buds will eventually be selected to be our trunk, our long-term trunk. Many of these young men have been involved from the beginning. As you see here, where we're actually planting the plants, these boys are really excited about working and doing something that has a vision. They're thinking about, in many cases, they're thinking about this step and what's the steps to come. We count it a privilege to have them to work with us, be a part of us. Yes, it does give us some difficult times at times working together, and hard work, and just really having to work through all kind of different issues and difficulties, but it's good, and in the long run it pays out, not only for Landry Vineyards, of course, but also for these young men and their lives and their future families. We drill holes for each plant, very important part of establishing the plant. One, we're breaking through the hard pan. That allows the roots to go deep down into the soils, into the deeper soils, where it's first of all cooler, but also where there's moisture. So we're trying to build in to the plant's life drought resistance. We want the plant to be able to ride through some difficult drought times, because we have them nearly every year. We have drought, and that is not a bad thing. Drought for grapevines allows the sugar levels to come up. But we don't want the plant to be excessively stressed.
The guys are out there planting, and I'm just straightening up in here, getting ready for a wedding.
We saw the signs, we decided to stop by.
Grow tubes are a great tool for us in establishing a plant. What we find, it's like putting it in a little greenhouse. If you lift a tube and inspect the soil right at the base of the plant, we find that it's moist, even though there hasn't been any irrigation done. It remains moist there. So it has the effect of placing some moisture in the soil. You know, when you literally look at the grow tube, it's a great way to establish plants. It's used in the establishment of other types of plants, whether it's small trees, etc. But we love using the grow tubes and really believe in using them. It's a continuous process throughout the entire growing season. Some of the shoots actually make their way up into the wires. And so, you know, what we're doing is we're trying to position all of the growth in between these sets of wires. Right now, there's flowers out there, right?
Yes, sir.
And those flowers are about to be little bitty berries, lots of little berries. This is like a critical time right now for us to do shoot positioning.
Last year, I remember when you did it, you would always go to the bottom when it was already like way up there. And
It shouldn't be on the bottom.
call it
gotta think. You gotta look at the situation and say, oh wait, there's no new plant, and I got a piece of wire right here that doesn't have anything on it. So I need to place this cane right here, this new summer cane, up on that wire. Because of where it's at, if it was right here coming out, you're exactly right, Michael. If you tried to bend it in, it would not make it. It would break. We want to develop that cane, into the cordon. How many leaves do you think it takes to ripen a bunch of fruit?
3.
Nope.
4.
About 10 to 12.
I thought you said 8.
10 to 12 leaves, and we don't think, that's what they think. Okay, that's my opinion anyway. It's just what they think it takes. I'm sure it's based on a lot of research and experimental research. But y'all listening up?
Yes, sir.
And I need people that I could say, hey Joseph, I need you to go run that crew out there. Today's shoot positioning. Yeah. We've got one person on each side of the road working all the way down. When you get to the end, walk back and just observing your work. You're checking your own work. All right? Y'all watch? Y'all following me?
Yes, sir.
I know y'all know this, but I'm trying to show you, you can go pretty quick with this, okay? And you can be a little rough. Y'all see how I'm kind of being rough on them? I'm pulling those tendrils off and to get them in position. You're probably losing a little fruit in doing this, but that's okay.
Not much, I don't see.
A little bit. Look, on your hands, I don't have much on this one. Blanc du Bois has more, which is interesting. These are about to pollinate probably next week. So right now, that's why it's critical before they start pollinating that we've got everything in position, because we don't want to touch them, and we don't want a high, strong wind to blow grapes all over the ground or anything like that. So that's why it's so critical that right now we do our shoot positioning. Well, we really had a challenge with this hillside with preventing erosion. We had opened up all of this hill and this bottom, but we had some 6 foot or so deep holes. I think we've got it solved. At this point, we think we're real close. These are growing a little slower, so you don't see near as many noses sticking out. And then we're going to apply our compost over the top of the soil to maintain some moisture in the soils, build up the soil with organic matter. It's really, compost is really great for the vineyard and great for making good wine.
And I went back behind him and to look at how much composting is needed on the plants, so that when it was my turn to get on a tractor, I would do it the way it was needed to be done, not the way I thought it should be done. Because my thoughts may not always be right when it's dealing with this composting that I've never done before. So basically I had to learn how to operate the machine and how much to distribute on the rows.
By adding compost, what we're doing is hopefully having a plant that is able to ride through some difficult times, both drought conditions and disease pressure, fungus pressure, and then able to come through those things and still be able to produce good quality wine. There's two things that we're trying to do today. One is that we want to remove all the suckers, and so that's so that the plant can then put its energy into cane production and future fruit production. Suckers are not going to be producing fruit because we don't allow it to. They're in the wrong place. They're close to the ground. You're talking about having fungus and that type of thing. So we've removed all of the suckers from here up to this wire. And usually we'll go all the way up to this line, but we're going to allow these to go ahead and produce some fruit, obviously, and they look pretty good. They're some nice looking future clusters. Timing is everything. Timing is just like making wine. You need to do the right thing at the right time. If you miss your opportunity, you're going to fight with it at a later time. You have at least 5 of those things. Stick it in the ground, remember?
And then come back and we'll do this side.
Yeah, and he can come back and we'll be fixing this end. And we'll put the little tightener up on that end. You know what I mean?
Now the whole point of this is to get rid of all the weeds on the row so that the vine has less stress on growing, because whenever that happens, it can't mature the fruit in the process.
We install a trellising system in different phases. The first phase being irrigation and the cordon wire. When we do vertical trellising, the cordon is placed at about 42 inches. The cordon is the fruit-bearing vine. From there, the summer canes actually spring up from the cordon at 42 inches again. We want to train up those vertical shoots straight up in the air. And then the fruit is actually established right there at the cordon. So it's fun to work with vertical trellising, but it's a great deal of work. The young plants are coming up to the cordon. That's our goal, is to establish the trunk this year. That's our goal. So this young plant this year is going to come up onto this wire, and we're going to tie it all along here. And then next year, the next growing season, we're actually going to cut all of that growth off. So all that tying, all that effort that went into keeping that guy up on this wire, all that will be removed. And now at that point, we'll have an established trunk. And we'll remove the tube. The grow tube will be removed in the wintertime next year. So we'll have a trunk. And then the following year, the second year, 2 buds will be chosen and they'll be placed onto the wire. So then this year's the year of the trunk. Next year's, I guess we would say the trunk. Next year would be the establishment of the cordon. And the following year, the third year, is the year of the fruit. it'll be the fruit-bearing year. So 3 years, 3 growing seasons, 3 leaves before we establish a crop. Here's the cut that we made right here. You see the cut. And here's another cut that we made back in here. So we left 2 canes from last year, and 2 spurs, if you will, we left, 2 canes, and we made the cuts. And then we have all of these buds that budded out, and each one of those buds will have 2 to 3 bunches. So even if you follow this one right here, here's a bunch, future bunch of grapes. Okay, they're just little flowers right now. They're not, clusters of grapes yet, but they're flowers. And then there's another bunch back here. So we've got 2, there's no more, I don't see any more. So we have 2 bunches, potential bunches that came from that one bud. We had a lot of rain. We had about 3 inches of rain last night. Grass is growing real nice on the side of the hill. Now that grass took off. We didn't blow out the hill like we did 2 other times on major rain events. We used this mat method, seeded it, and it's all growing up in that hay matted material. And we laid this concrete down at the base. This is our floodway, and to slow the water down with this concrete. It did go around it, which we expected it would, but we have to maintain some space for the tractor to be able to pass on that side. And so our next move is going to be to fill this in and seed it real good to force the water to go into this section. So we did real well after last night with 3 inches of rain. I mean, this is good. This is real good. What we're finding after a significant storm that we just had is that we still have full clusters. So we're always concerned that on a high wind situation or severe rain, blowing rain type situation, did we lose a lot of grapes? So, and what we're finding is, fortunately, we have full clusters, very little grapes missing. It really looks good. This is a critical time for the vineyard. Last weekend, it was critical that we got everything before the pollinating started, that we got everything inside the wires. And what we've been able to do, fortunately, is we got that work done, and the pollinating is underway. It's going at a fast rate. Now it's almost hands off. We don't want to touch. If we touch, what we end up doing is knocking a lot of grapes to the ground. We lose a lot of the fruit production. So it's critical. If we're gonna do anything, if we're gonna move and do some additional shoot positioning, we're gonna be careful not to disturb the grapes a lot. So, they're just so tender that if we shake a cluster of grapes, I mean, you can actually observe. Look, now that's partly that's not losing grapes there, and that's what's good about Black Spanish. You're just losing some of the little flowers. Although that may be, no, that's not. That's the little petioles from the flowers. Although it could be lost production, but I don't think that is. Sometimes if you shake them like that, you actually lose grapes. Some grapes hold on faster and harder than others. It depends on the plant. It depends on the amount of boron, apparently, that the plant has. There's factors involved that I don't fully understand. But I know that some hold better than others. So anyway, right now for us it's hands off, and we pray that we don't have any major weather that would cause the grapes to fall off of the clusters. Okay, this is Cynthiana Norton. Cynthiana Norton is behind. It's always behind Black Spanish and Blanc du Bois. It's a smaller cluster when it's grown in the south, and it's also, as I said, it hasn't pollinated yet, so you can see the flowers aren't even open yet. Lots of little clusters of flowers everywhere. But you can see that's the flower. That's not grapes. That's actually little flowers that will eventually pollinate the grapes. They're self-pollinating, so we'll end up with a cluster of little grapes if they all pollinate. This is little tiny grapes right here. All of these little guys are little small grapes. They're pollinated, except for the ones right here on the end. And if I shake them, that's why we did so well last night with that high wind. I mean, we had 40-mile-an-hour winds, and we're not losing any. That is really good. Which means we should have a good fruit set on Blanc du Bois, which means good production for this year. We've improved. I'm encouraged because in the past we were losing fruit during the fruit set period, and right now we're not losing fruit, so that's exciting. That's a full cluster of grapes. Very few misses, if any. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit, but there's very little misses. That's going to be a full cluster of grapes at harvest, or at least it should be. We did some boron treatments. That's foliar feeding with boron at about 4 ounces per acre of a boron plus product, and boron helps to increase fruit set. We've done that. We did some good tight pruning this year. We did a good fertilizing program, and then finally we applied our compost to the rows. You know, which one of these, or is it a combination? I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll pull some foliar. We'll do some foliar removal and do some foliar testing. We'll send it into a lab and test the plants for nutrients and everything, and see if we have any deficiencies. We need to do that within the next week or so. So we've got the results of our plant analysis. This is actually our foliar testing, and it actually looks pretty good. I mean, we've got good nitrogen. Phosphorus is a little bit low. Potassium is fine. So we've got some work to do, but it generally looks good. This is where composting, I think, is going to help us also. The reason we grow Blanc du Bois in the first place is Blanc du Bois is pierce resistant. So that's why we grow Blanc du Bois. It's one of the few pierce resistant grapes that we have that is classified as a wine grape. It's one of the few pierce disease resistant wine grapes that we have for the South at this point. So it is our grape for the South until they develop another pierce disease resistant grape. This is the grape we have to work with. Black Spanish doesn't give me the problem of holding on to its grapes. It seems to hold the grapes well. Some flowers are open and pollinating right now, so they're at different stages, and you have different clusters. Like this cluster doesn't have any that are in the pollinating stage at all, and they're all still in the flower stage or phase. I'm really very thankful for what I see in terms of fruit set for 2012. This is exciting, and I think we're in good shape, especially after an event like that. That was the test, if you will, to see are we gonna hold on to this crop well and have full clusters of grapes. I expect this year, Lord willing, what we'll come out here and find as the season goes on is we've got a really nice fruit set, big beautiful bunches of grapes. And so hopefully that's what we're going to see this season. We'll see. In other words, we produced 9,000 gallons last year, total wine. So it's an exciting time. We really can begin to see our vision developing further into the different varieties that we can craft wines with that will be acceptable and even very well received in our community in Louisiana.